Okay, everybody. I think we're going to start the afternoon session and we're going to have the slides. We're going to read from the book. Yeah, I think it's on the slides. Awesome. Who's this sort of stuff? Okay, we're going to start the community afternoon. This is actually the first time we've ever really tried to do anything like this before. To look specifically at impact in interactive technologies and how we can create impact in terms of interactive technologies and games and health and education and disability. So this year we've introduced the community practitioner sessions, and we're very lucky to have to have 5 volunteers from the community. I wouldn't exactly say they're volunteers, I've co-opted some of them. So, we're all aware that universities have an impact agenda, but I'm not so sure universities are that good at creating an impact agenda which suits their own needs and the needs of the community. So today is very much about working out what a joint impact agenda might be within the kind of specialists we're talking to today, in terms of dementia, in terms of special education, in terms of physical rehabilitation. So the roundtable discussions are aiming to closely explore specific issues that have been identified by the speakers themselves about creating impact. And it's really important that during the discussions, all participants have an equal standing. We're not a group of experts from university. Everybody has an equal standing. There will be no leaders on the table. There will be a facilitator who will record all the issues or challenges or main points that come out, but we want everybody to take part in the roundtable discussion, feed it back to the facilitator, and that information will come back to the floor. So today we're going to start off with 5 15-minute talks. In fact, the one by Alinda and Michael might be slightly longer. 5 15-minute talks to start. Each of those people are going to address main challenges, issues in their speciality, and how we might create a joint impact agenda together. After that, so each speaker will speak for 15 minutes. After that, we will have a roundtable discussion. Can you all see you've got a number on your badge? That will be the table that you're sitting at and taking part in. After you've had your 15-minute discussion, there will be, after you've had your 15-minute talk on your table, there'll be a 30-minute discussion on that table. The facilitator will record everything, the main points, and then each facilitator will feed back to the whole plenary for 5 minutes each. After that, we will get together for 5 minutes and decide a joint impact agenda. Okay, so 15 minutes talk each, feedback in terms of your 30-minute discussion back to the floor. Okay, we're going to start off first of all with Mr. Stewart from the Shepherd School, from the Oakfield School, and some students.
Thank you, David. David always refers to me as Mr. Stewart, makes me sound ancient. So, thank you very much. So, I'm here together with some colleagues from our NICER group, the Nottingham International Consortium for Educational Research. We learned many years ago you can make up any old title you like, can't you, for your group? So that's what we're called. So, I'm David. Michael?
My name's Michael.
What's it called?
My name's Michelle.
My name's Daniel.
My name is Terry.
And who have we got at the back? Lee. You'll find out why Lee's at the back in a moment. So we're just going to give you some of the views for us in terms of impact. First of all, can I just say, the very fact that we're here is a massive impact. If you think we came under the education system in 1971, believe you me, we would have not been here in the council house, we would have not been with you. The students might have been being researched on by both universities, but they certainly wouldn't be here talking to you. So we're talking about major impact over a long period of time. This is evidence today. When the gown asks the town to come and speak, there's always a risk, isn't there, for the gown. So just a very humorous little cartoon here. Often when we think about David Brown, who we've worked with for many years, this is what we might be thinking of here. I may or may not be on this continent. I'm probably in a meeting. I just walked in to get a few things before I had to run to my next meeting. Proceed with all caution. So that's a lovely sort of view there that perhaps we have. So if we were here in the 1960s, what would the word impact, what would the academics be worrying about impact in the 1960s? Particularly from the English departments, what would they have been worried about? They were worried that people were taking a verb and making it a noun. Okay? This is incredible, isn't it? We talk about impact, very much a noun, isn't it? In the 1960s, the academics were concerned that people were making it into a noun when it should really be a verb. Move to the next one. Yes. So, and now what do the academics in the English departments talk about? We don't like it being used as a verb, we like it being a noun, okay? So this is that history of the word impact. Has meant different things in different decades. Michael, what did you think impact meant to you when we were talking about impact?
It's a crush.
Yes, when he was thinking in terms of what does the word mean, yes, it's two forces, isn't it? That impact. I suppose that's what we're talking about. The impact of the universities with the community and what that impact is going to be. And we certainly hope it isn't like that. Now, here we are, a little joke here. You then instruct the intruder with a bound PhD thesis. Yes, it was research with impact. So I think that's what we're looking at this afternoon, is research with impact. Do a bit of blind Googling about impact. This is almost the first thing that comes up for Nottingham Trent. And you put Nottingham Trent University plus impact. This comes from the library department. So what are they talking about in terms of impact here? Checking that other people are citing your research. Is that going to create impact? Who knows? I mean, is it a sort of impact? Does it impact for us in the community? Probably not. If in some of those scholarly journals only 6 people ever read an article, however many times, what is the impact? Again, the second one, in terms of talking about the social media, and then about beefing up your identity. Okay? So those are the 3 things it recommends. Okay? So I'm just telling you, do a bit of blind Googling and find out what universities are saying about impact. Right, the importance of the user voice. And clearly, the Research Council is saying, ensure user perspectives are strongly represented. So, Michael, can you tell us some of the work that we've helped with? What are the projects we've helped with?
Get Connect, the user group, and also the robot.
Yes, we worked. Michelle, can you think of some other things that we've been involved in? Give us take the mic.
We worked on the mobile, done a big cheese factory,
Yeah.
water transport, Voyager City.
Endless. Next person. Can you think of some other things we... You will go on then. I know you've got a particular beef about this.
This mobile it done in not done.
Right. Some projects don't finish. Okay. The mobile phone, please get it finished because we. Okay. And Abigail, what are the other projects we? About the virtual reality, was it?
Yeah.
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 Would you want to say that? No? Another one? Okay. Lee, have you got another one you can think of? What are you looking at the moment? What's the one you're going to show us in a bit? My appearance.
My appearance.
Okay. So we've been working together with Nottingham University and Nottingham Trent University for nearly the last 25 years, particularly around technology, with other departments for a lot longer than that. Okay, so we have a wide range of experience, and this group has been going for about 20 years, and there's a whole range of other young people who belong to that. It's about hearing the voice, and when the researchers come to talk to us, and we don't understand, what do we say? What do? We say,
Stop.
stop. Can you explain what you're saying?
I don't understand.
And do you know what? Sometimes they can't explain what they've been talking about, which is a really interesting one. They can't sometimes tell us what the word means, although they've used it themselves. So really important that we understand what people are talking about. And let's give research time. You know, sometimes we race to the next bit of funding. Right, we've got to move on. We don't give ourselves enough time to actually embed what that research has been. Okay? One that I just picked up as I was coming out. Hospital closure. This was people from London School of Economics. 1990, this was all about the closure of the long-stay hospitals and our people coming out of them. It's 25 years old, this. There are still, who's doing the research on those people now? It's almost, oh, well, that's done with. They came out of the hospitals, end of problem. You know, there are people, if they were put into an institution at 5 in 1960, they're only going to be 60 now. They've probably got another 30 years of life. You know, what are we doing about these longitudinal studies?
Our government should do something about it and get it sorted.
Yeah.
Because our government, the Prime Minister, David Cameron, is not doing anything about it. He should do something about it, and for the people who are in hospitals and doctor surgeries and that, and he's not doing anything about it on MHS, and he should do something about it.
Right, well, thank you for that one. It's all nothing about being spontaneous, isn't it? Right from the heart there. Thank you very much. Yeah, so longitudinal. Often, you know, it's a 3-year piece of research, 2-year piece of research, and then we're on to the next one. But for us in the community, people are still there, and they, you know, are we actually looking at the longitudinal studies? Is that one? Sorry. Right, let's look at how a city, this is University of Cambridge. The people who arrive, this is on the railway station as you go into Cambridge. The people who arrive in this city change Cambridge. The ideas that leave the city change the world. And I think that's just a wonderful, you know, yes, we know it's Cambridge and whatever, but that could be any city, couldn't it? It could be for us here in Nottingham or in Birmingham or Bradford or wherever. You know, we have these wonderful universities, we have the academics here. They do change our lives. You know, the ideas that leave the city can change the world, and I think that's a really good thing to hang on to. Maybe, you know, we here as a city of Nottingham ought to be much more sort of proud and actually celebrating that. The Research Excellence Framework, do look at that. I'm sure you do, those of you who are in the academic world. But there are some really good disability case studies in there, looking at how people have demonstrated impact. What have we got on here? The conveyor belt. This is what we sometimes feel like. Because so many people want to do research, so many people want to come. So we might have 3 or 4 different research projects going on at the same time, with different departments, with different universities. It can feel like it, so one finishes and then you're on to the next one. And again, going back to what I was saying about longitudinal, we just don't get a time to get things embedded and really evaluate. But we know this is how funding drives things and the next project is coming on, but we do sometimes feel we are a bit on a research, so that's us in the community, how we feel. I want to show you a little bit of video. This is Beth. This is nothing to do with technology, but this is again a piece of research that was done by Trinity Laban, and this was looking at dance. And this started in 2009, and this was how we could look at gifted and talented in dance. This was a national project. And this is Beth, who's from our city, and this is a little bit of footage here from ITV, showing the impact of that work several years later. Thank you, Alex.
Hi, I'm Beth Gosney. I'm a contemporary dancer.
Heard them say, my church offers no absolutes. She tells me worship in the bedroom. The only heaven I'll be
always gotta close my eyes and think I'm on stage, back at home, in the bedroom.
It started as a 5-year-old girl dancing in front of the mirror, and it didn't take long to find her feet. But it wasn't until 2 years ago that Beth Gardner's talents really caught the eye. She was spotted during a national study into people's attitudes towards disabled dancers. She decided to audition for the Centre for Advanced Training. It gives amateur dancers the chance to work with professionals and further their careers. Beth from Wollerton in Nottingham was successful and is now the only person with Down syndrome in the UK to have a place on the scheme.
It is a selective programme. We only have a certain amount of places that we can give out. So yeah, it's a tough call. So it's a great achievement to get on the CAT scheme.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you.
We take the approach.
So in terms of for Beth, that was a really, if you're looking at impact, that piece of work, that piece of research actually got her into that programme. Okay, it was because up until that point, and if I tell you nationally, many of those centres will still not take disabled people. Okay, so don't think everything's wonderful and hunky-dory, because it isn't. But for Beth here, we certainly. But that came through active research, working with partners in the community, and that continues because we want other young people to come forward as well. So it just shows the impact there in terms of, and if we're thinking in terms of impact on the gatekeepers, these are the people who are stopping research sometimes. We need to get into the teachers, the head teachers, the families, the care workers, the employers. Who else, Abigail? Do you remember the commissioners, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We put exclamation. Any commissioners here? No, everybody's called a commissioner these days. It's wonderful, isn't it? It sounds like something out of a Russian play. A local authority. So it's about, the impact that you can have on those people too. So it's not just about the people who are... and one of the programmes that we have done with Nottingham Trent is My Appearance. And Lee is just going to show us. And when I talk to staff at school, this is probably one of the programmes that's had the biggest impact. So Lee's operating this at the back. You decide whether you're going to have text or sign language. There's some sound.
Not on sign language.
Okay, we can move on. We'll just have a quick look at the programme. And again. Okay. Okay. Quickly put your name in. Right, how long does it take you to get ready, Lee? In the mornings? How long? How long did he say?
Not that long. 10 minutes.
10 minutes?
Tops.
Wow, that's all 20. Oh, right, 20. Okay, let's see. Some of you will have seen this programme before. Okay. He reckons it only takes 20 minutes to get ready. Okay. Right, you can see this is Lee. Just got up, a bit rough. And it says he's only got, he can get sorted in 20 minutes. So what are you going to sort out firstly? You're going to what else? What's on the in the cupboard?
Get dressed.
Alright. You're going to smell nicer.
Put on deodorant.
Right, you haven't been to the bathroom yet. Must be busting. Come on, get quick. Out the door. In the hallway. Oh, there's the bathroom, right. In you go. Tea. Have you had it?
Go to the toilet.
Alright. Have you had a shower yet?
Have a shower.
Uh-oh.
At time.
Thank you.
Have you had any breakfast yet? Okay then. Okay. Yeah. Okay, well you can see that this is one of the really programs that staff still use, and when other colleagues come from other schools, not just special schools, they say, oh, this is a really great program for teaching youngsters. Okay? So this has been a really, in terms of right, these are points quickly for us. Ethical issues in real people's lives, longitudinal impact. The user voice is not just for Christmas, okay? When you've got your doctorate and masters, we're still there, okay? How impact is evaluated, how it's celebrated, and we don't do enough of that. And being honest, if something's not working, be honest and say it's not working. Okay, so thank you very much, gang. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. David did exactly the right thing, raised some points for consideration on table 1, 30 minutes to discuss those points and feedback to the plenary. I think I personally got away very lightly there. You could have said much more, and so did Nottingham Trent. Thank you very much. Next is Professor Pip Logan, Associate Professor in Community Rehabilitation, to raise her points about joint research and impact.
Thank you very much for inviting me to come and talk to you this afternoon. My name is Pip Logan, and I think my email address is going to be given to you after these sessions, so you can get in touch with me. I'm an occupational therapist by background, and I do half my working week as a clinician in the hospital and also in the community, and then I work as an academic at the University of Nottingham, but we have got some projects that we're doing with Nottingham Trent as well, so I cover a lot of areas. My main patient groups that I see are elderly people, or stroke patients, and I'm just going to concentrate. I've only got 15 minutes, that's what I'm going to concentrate on a few of the projects that we've been doing that have involved companies or technology, and I was talking at lunchtime saying I think there's a really big area that we could do a lot more in this area. So I'm going to whiz through some slides. So these are 3 projects that I'd like to talk about, and I've really only put up some names. These aren't all the people who are on the teams, but the face-to-face project that you can see at the top, that's with Philip Breeden's team, who are in Nottingham Trent University. I'll tell you a little bit more about that afterwards. We've got Joe's here, I think Joe Swift and David Brown and Penny Stanley, Joe's there. So that's a project that's, I think, Joe, have you got a stall here somewhere to show you? Just there, yeah. So that's an upper limb project to do with, for stroke patients using technology. And then the bottom one is an area we've been trying to research for a long time now. It's about people falling over. tend to be older people, but if you've had a stroke and you're in your 20s, you're much more likely to fall over. If you've got MS and you're in your 40s, you're much more likely to fall over. And falling is really quite damaging to your self-esteem, it's quite upsetting, but it also can lead to fractures and to horrible bruising and to nasty skin tears and hospital admissions. Now, as therapists, we're always thinking about ways of stopping people falling over, but there's an awful lot of technology now that's coming into the world of falls, how to monitor falls, how to try and alert people to not fall over, and I think that's one area that really is we could be doing a little bit more with. So this is a picture of a gentleman who lives not in the city of Nottingham but in the county of Nottingham, and he's kindly let me show you his picture of his face after he had his stroke. He is part of our face-to-face project, and this was a project that was set up a few years ago. We won some very nice research grants to do some work, and it's developed quite well. I think what David was saying before is quite difficult because we rely on the research money to get these things up and running, and then when the research money runs out, we sort of lose the impetus and all the groups disappear and sort of spread out a bit, and I think that's a really sad state of affairs to get into, and I'll show you what happened. So this gentleman had a stroke and he recovered quite well with his arms and his legs, but his face had this awful palsy, this awful weakness, and so when he went out he was often dribbling, his food wouldn't stay in his mouth, and he felt embarrassed because he didn't feel like he could sit in a restaurant. Quite a young gentleman, he was really upset. So the project that we tried to develop was using the Connect machine, and this is a slide to show you how the speech and language therapist would have treated Malcolm when he first had his stroke. And they would have given him a paper list of exercises to do, shown him how to do them in a mirror, and then left him on his own at home in the community doing these exercises. And he would have been told to do them 10 times a day, 20 times a day, with the idea that he could get his face to become more symmetrical, and then therefore the food and the saliva wouldn't fall out of his mouth. So what we were finding with the rehabilitation is that we can't send out a rehab therapist every day to these patients. Patients don't really want them coming knocking on the door saying, "Oh, hello, I'm your speech and language therapist today, I'm going to do 20 minutes. They're quite often happy to do the exercises on their own. But the problem is staying motivated to do them. You've got to do a lot of hours of exercise to get the muscles to learn how to work back in the right way. And people then obviously get bored doing them in front of the mirror all day long, but also they don't know whether they're doing them correctly. And I think that's important because when you're getting nerves and muscles to relearn, you want them to relearn in the correct way. So this project decided to use the Connect camera and produce use a computer screen, which now we think in the future should either be a television screen or maybe use an iPad screen. Technology moves along quite quickly and we need to keep up with it. We've got a very good user group on this project, so there's a lot of stroke patients giving us ideas from all age groups. And so this just shows you how it was supposed to be set up, and how the person who'd had the stroke would sit in their own home doing their own exercises. And this is a gentleman who does live in the city of Nottingham in a trial that we did last year where we actually got ethical approval and tried out this technology with a group of stroke patients. This is the speech and language therapist. Instead of just giving them the piece of paper, they would give them the programme of exercises to do. And then this is a picture of the gentleman doing his exercises, and you'd have a little icons to show you whether you've done them for the correct amount of time, and also you'd be able to, the machinery, technology could measure the distance that people were showing of their teeth and the symmetry of their face. So actually we would know if people were doing their exercises correctly or not correctly. This project at the moment's gone into a little bit of a hole at the moment, which is really sad, as I say, because of lack of funding, but we're hopefully going to resurrect it. This is Joe's project. He kindly sent me this slide, which is very good of him. But this is another stroke rehab project, and this is looking at upper limb activity. So again, the same thing. People are given by therapists lots of exercises to do, They're only in hospital 21 days, but their stroke is, they're going to be recovering from their stroke for months and months and months. And they're expected to do exercises in their own homes. It's very difficult, as we all know, to go to exercise classes and to stay motivated, but anything that people like computers, they like doing exercises where they've got feedback. This is one where Joe's trying to make sure that when people move their arm after they've had the stroke, they're moving it in the correct way and they're getting the best benefit out of their exercises. Physiotherapists, if there's any of you in the room, would know that people can do their exercises in very odd positions and they're not, and we don't want that to happen. This project's Joe's PhD, so hopefully it's going to progress and we're going to get a lot more people in Nottingham involved, and it'll be something we could maybe roll out into a bigger trial if we can get the technology and everything sorted out. It's a fantastic one. And then I'd just like to talk to you a little bit about the falls. Now we've got a Falls in Care Home project, we've just had it funded, and it's going to be running in the Nottingham City and in the Nottinghamshire County, and it's looking at trying to prevent people in care homes from falling over. And one of the big problems with that is that how do we measure when people are falling over? And there's a lot of discussion in the technical world about cameras in bedrooms, cameras in toilets, heat sensors to find out if someone's on the floor, accelerometers, bracelets, necklaces, all sorts of things. Some people have suggested that we should have a floor that changes from being a solid floor into a soft floor as people fall over. But the cost of that would just be immense, can you imagine it? So we just did a very small project. These are some of the ideas that we've looked at to try and help people, stop people falling over. Now, the problem with a lot of things, and this middle one is a very old-fashioned way, if you strap somebody in a chair and tip the chair back, then they can't fall over. But we're not into that. We're now into liberty and allowing people to walk around and allowing people to enjoy their lives and do things. So we can't have people strapped in chairs or bedsides put up. So we've been trying to look at accelerometers. Again, we've had some real problems with these. A lot of people say you can use an accelerometer to see if someone's fallen over. I don't know if there's anyone in the room that's tried them. But we've really struggled with this. So this is one area. We actually, these accelerometers, they're called active pals, and we attach them to people's thighs and they wore them continuously. But there was an awful lot of problem with people wearing something continuously if they've got confusion or if they've got a capacity to understand what's going on. Some people can wear them around their wrists, some people can wear them around their neck, but again, it's a difficult one if you're a little bit confused and you wonder what's around my neck and you take it off and you lose it. So I think the technology maybe is coming, but it's maybe that us as clinicians and in the health services haven't really engaged with the technology people well enough yet in this area. So these are a couple of my discussion points that I would like to raise, being a clinician. So how could we use technology to optimise better healthcare and make sure that what seems to be fantastic in the technical world actually can work in clinical settings and clinical trials? How we can talk the same language. I think sometimes, especially I've found that we're not talking on the same wavelength, and it's a bit sort of takes ages to be able to understand what each other is saying. How we can overcome some of the unnecessary barriers, which seem to be this this funding thing, stopping and starting, and never really getting anything practically used in a real life setting. And how we can make sure that we involve as many of the public and patients and carers of people. The people who really need this technology need to be involved in our research, and I think that sometimes, as we heard from David's presentations, sometimes can be an awful lot of burden to one small group when actually there's lots of other people out there. Thank you very much.
Okay, so there's some fantastic discussion points there for table 2. Can I just ask, everyone thinks they're sat at their right table, are they? Okay, we'll have an opportunity after the talks for people to readjust and go to the correct table. But thanks for Pip for a fantastic set of discussion points for table 2, plus some technological challenges. People interested in technology and falls, please make sure you get together and have some time with Pip this afternoon. Okay, the third speakers, we're going to have a bit of a double act here. It's Linda Gillett from consultant clinical psychologist, and Michael Craven from Mindtech.
Thanks, David. I think I'll wear the lapel mic. I'm going to do a quick introduction, and then it'll be Linda, and then back to me. Obviously, some of you heard me yesterday. So I'm going to talk about mental health and dementia, and we're going to concentrate on ADHD. And I was talking about ADHD yesterday, but Linda is with the ADHD. Adult ADHD practice in Nottingham in the NHS, and as I mentioned yesterday, I'm involved with Mindtech, and so a quick introduction to Mindtech. I didn't do one yesterday, and then Linda's going to talk about technology in an NHS ADHD clinic. So answer the question about how you get things in the clinic. Hopefully, or at least in that context. And I'm going to be talking about assistive technology in dementia, and actually quite a broad brush of that, but raising a few questions that we might like to talk about in the round table. Okay, so just to say, Mindtech, we're based in Nottingham, and we're one of 8 organisations funded by the NHS through the National Institute for Health Research, who are the sort of the research wing of the NHS, to look at unmet need in a number of areas. And there's 8 in the country, and they're all looking at. You can see they're all looking at different areas. And Nottingham is where we have to bid for this, but we bid to be the healthcare technology cooperative for mental health and dementia. So we're trying to look at we're acting as a catalyst for developing new technologies. We actually don't do a lot of development ourselves, and we're quite often mostly focused on technology evaluation of other people's kit and stuff and techniques. We're looking at the idea was that we look at high unmet clinical need, and we work in a multidisciplinary fashion with NHS, service users, academia and industry. And we're based at the Institute of Mental Health on the Jubilee campus of the Innovation Park of the University of Nottingham, and that's jointly run by the University of Nottingham and the Nottinghamshire Healthcare NHS Trust. Okay, so I'm not going to go into this in detail, but essentially we're interested we've got a national reach, so we're interested in partnerships. We're working with some companies that are producing kit. We're working with trusts that are trying out technologies in mental health and dementia. And they're just a few of the logos of some of the partners. But the main point I'd like to make from this slide really is that we're bringing in collaboration with through the sort of university structures, but also with SMEs and developers and technology developers, and also trying to act a little bit at the policy level, and we have been involved with some of that, and also but very much with users. And that when we talk about users, it's patients and clinicians and end users, and we have our own involvement team as part of Mindtech as well. So very much a sort of multidisciplinary partnership. And we've also got some charities that we've worked with, Comet Relief being one example. Okay, so over to just areas of interest for us then. We're interested, and these are just some of the areas, and I think David mentioned multiple projects. We've got multiple projects, one after the other, running in parallel. It's all good fun, but we've got lots. We're interested in all of these areas. So online peer support, big area, video conferencing, using that for sort of as a replacement or an adjunct to face-to-face therapy. Mobile apps, obviously a big area in mental health. We're interested in their safety, effectiveness, and how should the NHS use them. The NHS has recently announced it's going to take down its existing apps library, and there's going to be another one. It's really, there's a process going on there, and very much concerned with the quality of the products that are coming out. We're interested in other digital technologies, virtual reality being one example. Some medical devices, not actually that many. Cranial stimulation is one area of interest. And then there's this area of sort of emotion and affect detection. There's some work being done at Nottingham, but also there's one company in Oxford who's got a product looking at depression and affect for depression. And then we've got this general interest as well of sort of anti-stigma, getting rid of the stigma that still exists in mental health. and also dementia, and so we were involved with some public awareness raising and trying to use technologies for that. And you can see what we presented last year with Linda on the attention grabber, which was a public display, a public game to be used to raise awareness of ADHD. Okay, and that's the end of the general introduction. So over to Linda for the ADHD component, and back to me again.
Can you hear me? Is that, am I?
The mic's on there, Linda, we can have the radio.
I'm just wondering if people can hear me on this one. Yeah. Okay. I'll keep with this one, so Mike can keep that. So I'm a psychologist in a small NHS clinic for adults with ADHD. I'm not going to go into too much detail about what ADHD is. Hopefully people will have some awareness of that. But I think it's important to say ADHD is a lifelong condition for the majority, and it's actually quite a common condition. Around 2% of the general population have ADHD. It's quite pervasive, symptoms quite pervasive, and can really impact on day-to-day life. One of the things as a psychologist that I'm particularly interested in is executive functioning, which is quite impaired in ADHD. And these are things that deal with your planning, organising, time management, working memory. Those are the sorts of things that can really impact on your day-to-day life. So we already use some technology in the clinic as part of just living with ADHD. Often people find it really hard to remember that they've got a health appointment and what time it is and planning how to get there. So we use some text reminder sort of systems to help people remember to come to their appointments. Often I do work with people around helping them to remember to take their medication to treat their ADHD. So we can use reminder alarms and things like that to help people remember to take it. In terms of that executive functioning issue, I use things like electronic diaries and reminders and to-do lists, so people don't have to hold information in mind in terms of their working memory. I often refer to those as what are called queuing and storing devices, so essentially they're compensation strategies for working memory. I think there are good systems that already sometimes suggest people use things like Evernote and Remember the Milk, those sorts of apps to help with that. I work with quite a significant student population, and things like audio recordings of lectures on smartphones is helpful, and also voice recognition software such as Dragon and Naturally Speaking is quite useful. I think there is some potential for using technology in our NHS clinic. I think with this particular clinical population, I think it's really appealing. It's interactive, it's visual, it's a technology that often our client group are familiar with and interested in. So I think we've already sold the population that we work with, I think, on this idea. I think we can use technology to measure ADHD symptoms to help us with diagnostic assessment. And actually, I think what we're interested in is whether this promotes some efficiency in diagnostic assessment. When you've got that as a baseline, you can then use it to monitor treatment to see if it's making a difference. As Mike was just talking about, we talked about a project here last year on using technology to raise public awareness in ADHD. And we think there's just future scope for this, really. We're just really interested in this idea. So one of the projects we've been involved in with Mindtech is something using the QB test. So as a psychologist, I traditionally use paper and pencil tests, but actually they're quite laborious to administer and score and interpret. There's already some computerised tests of sustained attention, what's called CPT. These are quite advantageous because they can measure not only target items that you miss, but also ones that you put in, additional what we call commission errors. That's quite a good measure of impulsivity. The QB test was quite appealing because it had an additional measure of movement. Often people with ADHD are not very good at sitting still, so it was quite advantageous to be able to track movement as well. So I think the benefit for that in our clinic is it's an objective measure of symptoms. We're not just dependent on people telling us about their ADHD symptoms, we can measure that. For me, what's particularly appealing is you get an instant, it's just a one-click instant analysis. I don't have to go away and score it up manually. And then we can retest people to monitor treatment. I think the potential barriers against using something like QB test, the cost of purchasing it. We only have one, it's fixed in one room, so you always have to be in that room seeing the person. It's not directly linked to our patient data system, so it's not uploaded to their clinical record automatically. And it's not designed as a standalone test, so we still have to do the clinical assessments that we do anyway. This is just an addition. I think potential move on from this might be something like a project Mike's been involved in called Snappy App. So this is the same sort of CPT, but has the advantage of being on a mobile application. So it's got the same CPT plus a movement component, but on a mobile device. It's certainly got more advantageous ideas for us. But some of the problems with that are what you can't control for. So actually, is it the patient that's doing the test? What's the setting that they're doing it in? Is their movement affected by where they are? We also would need to think about how does that securely get transferred, that data, to the clinic? What would be the cost of development for that, for using it in an NHS setting and maintaining that? But also, for me, we've got to think about when does the clinician spend the time reviewing that data that's sent in. So often for us, the emphasis is on what gets called a clinical contact, your face-to-face contact with the patient. So that wouldn't count as a contact for us reviewing this information ahead of seeing the client. Some of the things that we'd like to think about are further work around raising awareness. We had a really successful project last year with Attention Grabber. We demonstrated through our evaluation of that this is useful for raising public awareness. I think you can do some further work around psychoeducation. A good example of that already out there is head meds. We could go further than psychoeducation and think about strategies and self-help tips. I really like this one called My Journey. It's about early intervention in psychosis and supporting people with that. We could do further work around symptom monitoring and thinking about games like Mike's presentation yesterday of awkward hours. I think some of the advantages of our clinic being involved in research like this is patients like NHS endorsed products. They like to know what the NHS or we as clinicians say is good and is reliable. These sorts of using technologies like this can increase our patient engagement. Like I said, there's that issue about collecting data ahead of clinic appointments is potentially advantageous. It certainly reduces form filling. Well, I'll put a question mark next to reduce clinical time. I think we don't know if it actually reduces clinical time. But I think there are barriers to this for us. NHS IT systems are a headache in terms of introducing new ideas and new technology. And then there are those data security worries to think about as well. Would it add to clinical time rather than saving clinical time? I think we're not sure. But also I think a worry for the patient might be, if I'm sending all this information ahead of you, will you then spend less time with me as well? So I think that's a concern that patients have got. I'm going to hand over to Mike, who's going to talk about dementia.
Okay, so this is really quite a different talk, but actually I think it's worth comparing, because whereas Linda's talk was about use in the clinic, in dementia very much talking about, it can be in a sort of care home or even a home care setting, but also out in the community. And I think that, and also the market for these devices is very, very different. So let's just maybe to think about that as we go along this talk. And my approach here is to really to think about, okay, what are the needs that we're trying to address? And here are some of those needs in dementia care. And also what kind of, how do we sort of make sense of all the technologies that are there? And I'm hoping to introduce some technologies you might not have thought about were being already used in dementia care. So some areas of need then. So dementia, it can have a real severe impact on daytime activity, and there are issues of motivation and apathy, but also motivating to go out or motivating to perform everyday tasks, and so we could think about technology to support that. Dementia can have an effect on what you were doing before you had your diagnosis of dementia or had the effects of memory loss, for example. And so how could technology perhaps support somebody in maintaining hobbies that the person was doing before, maintain their interests, and also to continue to enjoy life and exercise and do all the things that we're asked to do generally, and we would like to do. And then there's issues of company and social interaction that might be constrained by having dementia. And then there's some of the more sort of physical issues of continence and personal care. And also one of the things that's often neglected in dementia is moods, and depression is a big issue, and that needs to be thought about. And there are ways, there will be ways of using technology for mood in dementia care. So I just want to talk about assistive technologies. And I don't know what you think of when you think of assistive technologies, but there's a lot of sort of work being done on categorising, and I just thought I'd introduce some of this because it comes from the literature. So if you go to the some work done in Scotland and to talk about assistive technology in terms of generations, and if you think about assistive technology, I think possibly a lot of people think about sort of pull cord alarms and sort of safety devices, and they're sort of wrapped into this thing called first generation telecare. But then the second generation of things like memory aids and other forms of what is conventionally called telecare, perhaps sensors in the home, which I'll give some examples of in a minute. And then third generation, some things you might not have thought about as being relevant to dementia, but communication devices and apps and are very relevant here. That's one way of thinking about technologies and assistive technologies, and it could be, obviously, it could apply to other fields as well. But here's some really nice work by Grant Gibson, who's now was at Newcastle, I think now in Scotland. I can't remember exactly where. He's worked with others on trying to define technologies by the way that they're used. So they've categorised technologies to use that people with dementia use themselves. So buy them, and a lot of people, for instance, use sat navs so with dementia you can still drive, but maybe you could use a sat nav to support you getting from A to B, and the use of mobile phones. And then other devices that are used with people with dementia, things that you might do with a family member or a carer, or maybe in a care home setting, and things like electronic calendars and reminiscence devices could also come into that. And then things that are, perhaps these are the things that maybe often thought of as the assistive technologies, but things that are used, I think that should say on them, not for them, on them, sensors, alarms, and even physical devices like hoists. That's one way of thinking about it. And then here's yet two more ways of thinking about technology. So one of them is some technologies are specifically designed to help with memory. For instance, a medication reminder. This is a timed box of medication that will open at specific times, and maybe could record whether you've taken the medication out or not. But we can equally think of everyday technologies like dictaphones that you could use to help remind you when to do something. So two technologies, one that's bespoke and another one where you're adapting something that's in everyday use. And then on the other side, we can think about technologies where the technology is really the thing that you're dealing with. It's an app, or it's a robot. I'll give some examples. Or we might think of technologies that are more in the background. So a bed sensor might help to see whether somebody's getting up, maybe getting up too much, or maybe not getting up due to lack of motivation. And so you can use a bed sensor or chair sensors, and I'm sure people here will be familiar with some of these things. And you might also think about tech services that run in the background, as well as being technologies, and perhaps an integration of other health systems into this whole idea of what we'd like to think about as technology. So, okay, enough of the words. I'm going to just give you a few examples then. So here's an example of something that actually came out of the designability in Bath. And it's the dementia clock, and you might have lost the ability to tell the time, but this will tell you that it's morning or afternoon. It could be very useful. So it might help you stop you getting up in the night unnecessarily, or remind you, actually, yes, I usually do this in the morning, and that might just be enough to help. So there's an example of a very simple technology, but could be incredibly useful. And there's all those, I've already mentioned a few of the others. Okay, and then this is the conventional telecare. So you've got all these sensors, something that might tell you whether you should you filled the bath up and you don't want it to overflow. So there's a flood sensor there. You've got GPS sensors. This was an example where the GPS sensor is actually built into the trainers. You've got various other devices, things that can help you to detect whether you've got up from the bed or chair. I've already mentioned those. You heard about falls earlier, and other physiological sensors could be useful. And increasingly, these are being combined. So this is actually a product called Just Checking, which actually looks at the way that where the doors are opened and whether somebody's got up or down for, in the whole house, and you can actually build up a pattern. You might actually use it to see whether somebody's actually having problems or not having problems, and it can be used in both ways. So, and that's really what we might call sort of conventional telecare, and that's already used. And then perhaps less, this is perhaps more into less usual, but increasingly common into people's homes, especially with smart TVs. You've got the potential for video links, perhaps keeping more contact with somebody. You've got these telepresence robots. It's actually being used in the NHS. It was trialled in the Western Isles of Scotland. So the idea is that the person is remote, but they're actually on a screen on robotic wheels, and that can be used to communicate with somebody at a distance. And there's lots of also concepts of perhaps simpler versions of smartphone apps, and also sort of home hubs that combine all the sensors together. Okay, and then perhaps even less well known, the use of pets and robots, pets even. There's a seal, it's a robotic seal. If you've never held power of the seal, I recommend it. It moves, it makes sounds, and it's used in care homes. It's being evaluated in the UK at the moment. It's very popular already in Japan and Denmark. And then there's other versions of that. There's a cat on the right. And then use of virtual reality. And there's actually a dementia village in Holland where the environments have been designed to help support people with dementia by introducing a familiar environment, and also in virtual environments. So areas that I think could be developed, or we think could be developed, smart TVs and smart TVs, this is in many people's homes. I think it's underexplored for use in dementia care. There's useful aspects of smart TVs. Maybe the camera could help to see whether somebody's falling asleep a lot, or whether they're moving around the house. There's issues of surveillance, and which we have to think about. But there's a big potential there. Music and arts, so really important area. Something that we're exploring in Nottingham with the Imagine project, and music and arts. Using sensors in intelligent ways, tracking somebody, help somebody to track their behaviour, maybe remotely or maybe with that person self-monitoring. We have to think about the acceptability there. And then perhaps the use of intelligent lighting. Again, there's some research examples, but it's not really in common use. There's a great example from Canada where somebody's being led through washing their hands by means of a lighting sequence. So these things are currently really in research. Okay, so not far at the end. This is really where we're coming from, though, is that so much assistive technology, the way it's being portrayed in quite a negative way, and dementia is sort of seen in quite a negative way. The technology is all about safety and containment, but if you see the potential for the technologies I've described, there's so much more that can be done, and we can talk about what about autonomy and independence and self-actualization, and there's Maslow's hierarchy of needs on the right. A lot of the assistive technology, if I can move over, is about, it's down here, it's physiological and safety. What about love and belonging, esteem and self-actualization? And we should be thinking about the use of technology to support those higher parts of the hierarchy. So there's also a need to improve access to assistive technologies. It's a very sort of fragmented market. Some of these things you can only buy yourself. Some of these things are already built into home environments, or should be, but aren't. And who's responsible for installing them? It's quite. There's a lot of discussion about who pays for it. So the issue of access is really important, and equity of access specifically. I also got a point. This is the government strategy for dementia is about living well with dementia. It's not just about containing dementia. And just a few projects going on in Nottingham. I've been involved in these two at the top. I will leave you to go to our website if you'd like to look at them rather than talk about them now. started a European staff exchange project. I'll be going to a couple of places in Europe. We will be receiving people from other countries, and technical centres will be coming to the Trust to work on mindful design in dementia. So you can go onto our website for those. And there's a couple of things, again, run locally. We've got the IDEA website. That's run by the University of Nottingham. I'm a trustee of Trent Dementia, who run the AT Dementia, Assistive Technologies in Dementia website. That's really worth a look, and we're looking at improving that. And then we've got a couple of things that exist sort of for networking. We've got the Centre for Dementia at the University of Nottingham, based at the Institute of Mental Health, where we are, in Mindtech, and also the East Midlands Research into Ageing Network, MRAN, and there's a couple of people here who are involved with that. And in fact, I'm standing here today talking about dementia because Eamon Kanja invited me, if she's here, invited me based on a talk I gave at the MRAN network, so I'd say that would be really useful. I need to stop now, don't I? So thank you very much. We've got a symposium coming up. Thanks.
So thank you to Michael and Alinda for raising some important challenges and opportunities, but specifically areas for development as well. And I think these areas for development should be really multidisciplinary, and I know we have multidisciplinary teams here. Carl's also asked me to remind you, go onto Facebook, if you're using Facebook, and like the talks or any of the sessions that have been going on today at ITAG, so get some energy around that too. At this point, we still have around 55 minutes before tea. So we've had 3 talks so far. We're going to have another 2 talks. Does anybody want to make any comments about the themes emerging, challenges, opportunities, or carry on with the 2 talks? Has anybody got anything pressing to say? Nobody's a tough audience again. Okay, let's carry on with the 2 talks. So next we have Anthony Rice, ICT coordinator and teacher for Trinity Field School and Gesture SEN.
Hello there, thank you for the opportunity. It's nice to show you my job because it's the best job in the world. I'm going to talk about using gesture-based technology with hard to engage pupils all at school. Next slide. Oh, it's me. Next. Right, yeah, I'm Anthony Rees. I've been teaching special needs for 12 years and I've been ICT coordinator for 4 years. We've got all these lovely awards. I'm just waiting for my OBE to arrive in the post. Captain off. We do a lot of work with emerging technology and we're sort of a national lead really in that regard. I'm going to stop talking because I've got a lovely 5-minute video of our pupils using it because it's hard to describe in words or pictures. You need to see it in action. The video shows the pupils using the Connect sensor. There's some eye gaze work there as well. If you notice the pupils aren't touching the screen, it's because he's using it with his eyes. There's a bit of iPad stuff in there. There's some floor projector work as well. And all these pupils have got severe learning problems. They're all quite hard to engage as well. So one of the activities is like you'll see 2 pupils working together and they've got severe autism, so it's nice to see them working together. And it's hard to describe all the background to each individual pupil. It will take me hours, but hopefully you'll get a sense of what we do in school from the video. And there's also some outrageous Welsh accents at the end, so be warned. Can we start the video then?
I haven't been given the video.
Oh. I did send it through. Did you not get the video? Good start. I'll move on a little bit until we get the video. Yeah. We've been using the Connect sensor since 2012 in one-to-one sessions with pupils. We've used lots of programs. There's one called Semantics, which is made for autistic pupils. There's VisiCord, which is a night clubbing program from California. I got in contact with the guy that makes it, and we use that in school quite a lot now, and he helps us with using that. We've used processing sketches and done a tiny bit of coding, but I'm not a coder at all. And we use a couple of Xbox programs like Clinic Party as well, which are meant for mainstream, but work really well with our kids, and they're on the video as well. Mainly we use it as an engagement tool for the body awareness with low functioning pupils with ASD, but we also use it for those with limited physical capabilities as well. That's some pupils using it in our ICT suite. We have ICT lessons. We use it as part of the literacy and numeracy sessions, and we also run an after-school club as well, which is like an inclusive ICT club. That's Oliver and Tilly. We've also got a floor projector, which has got a motion sensor at the top, and it projects the activity on the floor. It's very useful for pupils with physical disabilities. They can move around on the floor and have all these wonderful effects, which you'll hopefully see in the video. And we've had some great engagement and communication from hard to engage pupils. Last term, one kid we've got won't engage with anything, and he gets quite violent, and he's quite hard to manage, but he really loved one of the activities on the floor projector, so in the end we had him working alongside another pupil for about half an hour, which was unheard of because he would just hit out previous to that, so that was really good. Any joy so far?
Just checking your emails to see what's on there.
I've got it on my laptop if that helps, but
yeah.
Yeah.
What we can do, Anthony, is if you don't talk after you finish and come back to the video.
Okay. It's on my laptop. Yeah. So that's a picture of that's Daniel, who's my early tester, because he loves all things technology. So if the pupil moves their arm, for instance, you get all these lovely flower effects moving across the screen as well, and you can set it for all the different pupils with different activities. We've also been using iPads. We've had an earlier PLC, stands for Professional Learning Community, as well. Lots of schools get together in Wales and they do research based on a sort of area or a task. So we did that in 2012. It's a very useful piece of kit, and we use it throughout the school for all sorts of different things. We use it as a motion sensor for pupils to move their heads and make music. We use it for obviously literacy, numeracy activities as well. But it's a very good engagement tool. We've got about 30 iPads at the moment. Well, they don't break. But, we've also been using eye gaze systems, so that's eye control of the computer with your pupils. So you move your pupils and it acts like a mouse on the screen. We've got 21 eye gaze users, ranging from the sensory use, just cause and effect, right up to using it as a communication aid. And we're getting some really good rewards with pupil achievement. We've got a girl with Rett syndrome who's just jumped up quite a few levels in our assessment procedure, because although she's got no physical control of her hands, she can access the computer with her eyes, and we're realising her cognitive abilities are way above what we thought she was at. This is next. I do actually hate computers. I work with them all the time, but you just
So neither of the devices, interaction devices, are working. So what is this? The Interactive Technologies and Games Conference.
We've also been using the Oculus Rift headset. We got that about 6 months ago, so we use that for pupils. We're using it for engagement with excluded pupils from other schools. They come to our school and they are using the Oculus Rift at the moment just to re-engage them back into the classroom, back into school. We also use them for some sensory lessons. So it acts like a light effects with for pupils. And I think we're the only school in the UK using it so far. I've not heard of anybody else using it. There's a school in Australia that's using it with autistic pupils, but I've not come across anything on the web. So we're sort of finding our feet with that and learning as we go along, really. Just talk briefly about the advantages of virtual reality. It's a safe way to learn about social skills and dangerous for our pupils, I think, although there's not much content out there at the moment. It's also a safe way to experience exotic places and experiences. You know, we've got some pupils in wheelchairs who are floating above the Alps in a hot air balloon, and they can look over the side of the ground, which is an experience that they'll never actually achieve in real life. Or you can fly, or you can go skiing, things like that. So it's enabling technology in that way. And yeah, like I said, it's the only way you're going to get some people on roller coasters, and they really respond well to the experience. And it's a really good portable sensory room as well, because you can have the people in the classroom and put the headset on, whereas previously you might have to take them into a dark room with another member of the staff. So in terms of practicalities, it's quite a nice piece of kit. That's Chesky Turner in my classroom using it. She absolutely loves it. She likes flashing lights and bright lights, so she's using a music visualizer there, and there's a video of her just laughing her head off for about 10 minutes on that. She absolutely loves it. That's my classroom. It's very messy, as you can see, and that's Harrison, one of my other pupils in the corner there. That's one of our staff using it. She put in some funny faces. That's Danielle. She was excluded from her previous school, which I think was a special unit at her school, so she came to us, and she asked, when her Oculus Rift sessions are pretty much every week, and she actually loves school now and education as well, so that really helps. So the main principles of what we do is just going for it and being imaginative with new technologies and thinking how you can adapt them to our workplace, and not to have to wait for someone else to tell you what to do with new technologies, because we know our pupils really well, we know their needs. They've got very diverse needs, so it's a question of knowing your pupils and then matching the technology to the pupils. And we don't really need academic trials to find what works with our pupils, because they're very brutally honest. They'll either hit you, or they'll just walk away, or they just won't engage. So you get feedback pretty much straightforward as what's working and what's not working in terms of engagement. And yeah, there's not much point planning too much, because we tend to try things first, then plan afterwards what we're going to do with it in the future. Again, yeah, if it's not working, we can alter track quite quickly. We're quite adaptable in school. We also share all our work online. We've got a website called Gesture SEN, which is a wiki site, and all the other schools add to it as well. So it's got all the information you need to set up all the different equipments, what works with what pupils, what resources are there, links. So it goes online pretty much instantly. Once we find something new out or something that works, it goes online as well to share with other educators. And we've also had lots of help from coders as well, from academics in Cardiff Met University. Companies, like I said, the guy from California was very helpful with his program. He let us have it for free. It was 180 quid, I think, but he let us have it for free, and I use it in our school. So. And not to be afraid of technology. I know it always goes wrong, like it does today, but what is the worst thing that can go wrong? And that's something we instill with all our staff in school as well. You can't really break things. Issues, I suppose, that for talking about afterwards is it takes a lot of time to install. You get technical difficulties, things don't work often. So that affects adoption by other staff and embedding in the school. Lots of the technology are working in lots of different classrooms because the teachers know it works, but it's a case of getting that message across and having it, switch it on and it works. Costs can be an issue. We've probably spent about £40,000 in the last 3 years on gesture-based technologies. The eye gazes were very expensive, but they're coming down in price. I had to buy a £1,500 laptop to run the Oculus, so the head teacher okayed that because he can see the advantages of it, which is the next point. You need to convince management that the risks are worth taking, and if work hasn't been done before, you just need to try it out. Some things haven't worked. The leap motion didn't really work very well, so but that's all. So thank you for any questions. I hope I can show you the video later on, because that's the whole point of the talk, really. So hopefully we can get that on afterwards. Thank you.
So I'm not sure how far did we get with the video. Can we show it after the session or later on? Yeah. Okay, we'll get your laptop at some point. Interesting thing that you mentioned about the Oculus Rift and using it with students. My understanding was that we weren't supposed to use it with students under 13. What's your experience of that?
We mainly use it with pupils over 13.
Okay.
I have used it with pupils under 13. My children have used it as well, so it's only for very short periods of like 2 minutes. But
it's very interesting because we have some real specialists here in terms of health and safety. And I know my old research team, we trialled out headsets and looked at cyber sickness and other effects. Sue, I don't know if you want to make a comment at this point.
Yeah, I think to see that you are using
immersive system, because certainly when we were looking at this, and I think to be fair, it was some years ago, and technology really was quite heavy, cumbersome, and potentially claustrophobic. We really felt that it wasn't appropriate to be putting children inside the virtual experience. So it is interesting to see that you're starting to do that.
I found it very interesting myself, because I think we always wanted to do it in the past, and we were kind of guided by health and safety not to do it, but I can see huge advantages of, so it's just really interesting to see you doing it as well. The other thing you said, which really made me laugh, and I was looking at David when you said it, is you don't need academics to tell me whether this works or not. And I think that's really, I mean, we all, few academics looks at each other, which I think is great. So I think that is something that should come out in the talks, because I think that's a huge challenge to us. What do you mean you don't need us to tell us if it works or not? So that was a great point, I think, that you made there. So again, some really, really interesting points have come out. Any other questions or points that people want to make now? Penny?
I was interested in a couple of points you made. That you quite rightly said that it's difficult to convince the management to take the risk. But then earlier on you said just go and do something. But one of the problems that we found is we feel, I'm a researcher, we feel we should be providing potential consumers with evidence so that risk isn't so great.
Yeah, so
I mean, do you think that we shouldn't worry so much about that?
it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation, isn't it? Because if you haven't tried, most of these technologies we haven't tried before or haven't been tried in school before, so you know, you think it might work, but you need to try it to see if it actually does work, if you see what I mean. So it's been like just an ongoing process of evaluating how the pupils respond and then working on that to extend it to other pupils.
I suppose it's the answer that that's another area where we need to work more closely together.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't get the evidence in isolation. We do that with you, so you can then make a choice.
Yeah, I've done some evidence. I've done a postgrad essay on using the Connect with one pupil, and I've done another postgrad leadership module on the eye gaze. So I've got bits of evidence, but it's not the driving force behind it, because you know, you could take weeks planning, weeks assessing afterwards. It tends to be more of a cycle of using it. If it doesn't work, try something else, or with another pupil, and you know, it's a sort of
and you've got
constant
to make the investment, the financial investment, to try it out. I think that's where it's quite problematic, because a lot of schools would feel they could do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, great if they could borrow something for a bit of time and try it out before they committed.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
And just before I go to David, the thing about the say eye gaze is that we also at school have very, very expensive eye gaze systems until one of our researchers found Mytobi SDK online for 50 quid. And that kind of revolutionised what we were doing in terms of eye gaze. And it's about not reinventing what we're doing, but sharing it within this community so that we all know what is the cheapest, most affordable and programmable assistive technology that we have together. So it's about having a network as well, isn't it, really? David, you have a point?
It was just really to continue what Penny was saying. I might take a risk and say, but if you want them to convince our colleagues in other schools, establishments, having that research base really then, they may be much more anxious about it. So it's all very well being risk takers, but we're going to convince others we do need to have that research base.
Okay, thanks for that point, David. Danny at the back. Okay, Danny, we might need the microphone. Michael, do you want to shoot to the back and give Danny the microphone? He'll put his hand up so everybody can hear. Our glamorous assistant.
At the end, you briefly mentioned you didn't have favourable results with leap motion. I was just wondering what problems you encountered.
The problem was the pupils had to have quite good finger control, so I was hoping it would be more of like a mini emotion sensor, but unless the pupils' hands were sort of moving like that, it didn't pick them up very well, so lots of our pupils' hands are sort of bent over and it wouldn't detect them.
A lack of precision.
Yeah, so it was that issue. So I have used it with a couple of kids quite well who like to wave their hands around, so that picks them up now and again, but yeah, so it's not been the best, but we've stuck it on the front of our Oculus Rift now, so we found a use for it in the end.
Okay, I think that's fine. Thank you, Anthony, for a brilliant talk. Thank you very much. So our next speaker is Zulfikar Khan. Zulfikar is from the CEO of Great Healthcare for the community from Birmingham. So I know you have a huge network of contacts in the community, and he's also going to be assisted, I think, here by Terry as well. So welcome to the stage.
Can I first say thank you to Professor Brown and Claire for inviting us. I normally don't do talks, I stay in the background, but unfortunately Terry's put me in this position, so I'll have to do it.
We should make Terry, well volunteered.
Okay, firstly I'm going to talk about our organisation and what we do. My name is Zulfikar Khan, and I'm speaking on behalf of Great Healthcare. It's based in Aston in Birmingham. If you don't know where Aston is, we're next to Aston Villa football ground. It's quite deprived ward, nationally and locally. We set out in 2011, but previous to that, in the last 20 years I've been working in the public sector. Predominantly, I set up the first youth centre for Birmingham City Council. It was a project called Motivate with Focus Housing Association. And I also sat on the Aston Pride New Deal for Communities, where I chaired the health team group. The project was worth 56 million, I managed 8 million. And I looked after community outreach, family support services, where the community deliver on behalf of the local authority. As we heard in around 2011, the Prime Care Trust were going to come to an end. And the government was looking at two ways of breaking up the Prime Care Trust. One was called Public Health Sector, one was called CCG, Clinical Commissioning Group, which was going to be managed by doctors and it's going to be medical. The other one was the local authorities were going to look after was public health. Both of those agencies still haven't commissioned, and if the CCGs are commissioning, they're doing it internally among themselves, GPs at present. But definitely local authorities haven't commissioned at all at present in our neck of woods, and I think it's similar to other authorities as well. So we set up Great Healthcare in 2011 thinking that we're going to deliver services for the community, by the community, in the community, and that was myself and Dr. M. Sinha, who was one of the lead doctors in the Midlands, who has experience of 35 years. He retired 2 years ago. Unfortunately, we weren't unable to do that because, as I said, the commissioners haven't commissioned those public health or CCGs to the community. Then what we looked at was to work with large work programme organisations such as A4E, who are no longer here. They've been bought out by People Plus, which is a Sheffield-based company called Staffline, who has bought formed People Plus of Avanta, EOS and A4E, who have the largest work programme in the UK, and they deliver services on behalf of the national government to get unemployed people back to work and train and skill them. And GHC is a small partner in that big pond with People Plus to support and deliver those services. And what we did, we firstly wrote a course which was to help people to deliver services for the community, as I said, by the community, in the community, called General Health Technician course, which was level 1 and 2, which was with Skill First, which was accredited, and that was to support people into work, especially work in living support, young people to work in doctor surgeries, work in pharmacies, and the biggest job market at that time was living support and still is today because it's a high turnover of those jobs. And the way we were going to support them was through this course. Level 1 was to take blood pressure, diabetes, CPR, first aid, health and social care, and customer service and IT. The course was a 6-week course, it's accredited, and we delivered it with medical support. And once these people are trained, those are the vacancies they could fulfill on behalf of, those are the vacancies available to fulfill for these unemployed people. So we've done 6 pilot schemes. They were very successful in Birmingham, and majority of our people got jobs, and some of them are care home managers since they've taken that course up. And today is about actually supporting those vulnerable unemployed people to get them into the work market. The government agenda has moved on to ESA clients. There's 2.5 million unemployed ESA clients. There's 1.7 million of JSA clients. The government's now saying to these work program providers that you must work with ESA clients. And ESA clients are people who have disabilities or some issues of medical or health grounds to support them back into work. So we are working with People Plus and GHC to support the government agenda to get these people into work. And that's why we're here today, and see if we could use technology to support these people into work. And the ways we're looking at it is that not to treat everybody the same way. As a person walked through that door, at present we treat everybody the same way. The way we want to do it different is we want to screen these people as they come to us. We want to do a triage system on the basis of what a normal GP would use. But we will put therapy in place, put action in place, evaluation report in place as well. So we could do the initial needs assessment with them. Then if they need to, we could put occupational therapy in place for them and look at their functional capacity. So all the triage is done at the early stage and the screening. So we understand what action plan we could put on for these clients in the first place. Then we'll carry those therapy or whatever needs they need. And after that, we would then carry academic or educational assessment. So the second stage would be educational assessment to see what training they need, what skills do they need to get closer to the job market. That would be the second stage. Then the third stage would be to set up a tool that is easier for them to find a job or support them with CV support or any sort of employability skills they need. And that would be a simple sort of a recruitment tool that they could find the jobs, you put their CV in, and search engines, the jobs that are relevant to these clients, and then support them to get them into work. Hopefully, when we've done that, we get them into work. And the fourth part is, a very important part, is that we get them into work. And once they're in work, we want to build a system that could actually support them at workplace. If they're uncomfortable or they not feeling well or they haven't got the right tools, they could speak to their mentor through our app or somewhere, report back to their mentor and say, we are finding all these difficulties at work. So then the mentor actually speaks to the employer rather than the individual speaking to the employer. And then we could improve that person's lifestyle in the workplace, and that will enable to us to sustain those jobs for a long time. Because one of the hardest tasks we have is sustaining these vacancies for a long time period. People get into work, they don't stay as long, and it may be as small things, but it's getting that back to the employer to make those changes. And if we have the mentors and the support there, we would be able to help these people to sustain their jobs for longer. And we, as work program organisation at People Plus, we work from job centres, we work nationally, we have offices in every city. It's a national program. If any research was to be done, we have the clients to do it and we have data to be done. Now I'm going to get Terry to summarise it and say why technologies is important. So I'll pass the most important part to Terry.
So, as Solfinger quite rightly said, there's a drive away to move people away from the benefits into employment. But the hardest group to move are disabled people, or people that are on some of the, what we used to traditionally call the disability benefits. So, more people with disabilities are expected to enter the workplace. That's the reality. But currently the support mechanisms that are in place are inadequate or aren't there. And a lot of people probably see a lot of bad publicity and about the tick box culture. We go in, we see a provider, we get, we're just a number and then pushed out. So what we wanted to do was throw a challenge out there really today in respect to that, was can technology help us with that? Is there a way that technology could be used in a more effective and innovative way to provide us with the answers? Is there a way that we can use technology to support these people as well as that human element, that face-to-face? Because at no point should we ever forget that face-to-face is really, really important. So, we've said that there's a need for a development of an interactive assessment. That assessment, hopefully, would then pick up all the issues for that individual, whether that be they've got mental health concerns, whether or not they've had issues in the past, what is their disability and how does that disability affect them on a day-to-day basis. I know I'm not talking to people that don't know here, but two people with MS have completely different needs. Sometimes the assessments that are in place, all it says is this person's got MS. And that's all you know. How does that affect someone on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, which an employer needs to know so that they can effectively support them. We need to ensure any systems are adaptable to the individual. I think it's fair to say that over the years, and I've been involved with a number of projects, sometimes those systems aren't adaptable. We come up with what we think is an amazing tool, we use it, and then actually, very quickly we come across someone who we think it should be there for and to help, and it isn't. So the reality is there a way we can make things more adaptable? I think, as Zolfig already quite rightly said, we should never forget that one size fits all. Too often the systems that are in place is looking at, is it going to catch the majority of people, and we forget about those people outside of that don't fit into that little box that we want them to fit into. They don't fit into that assessment tool that we've created, whatever that tool is. And a particular interest of mine is, can serious games be used? Is there a way that we can actually be a lot smarter? We can be cleverer than everyone else and use something like a gaming approach or interactive scenarios which enables us to capture the data, which will then enable the staff at Greater Healthcare and other providers to get a better picture of what that individual's needs are. Because ultimately, and I'm sure I'm not the only person here, there is too many people that are being pushed into employment because they need to go into employment, and we all would argue that that's the best thing for them, but within a matter of, say, 4, 5, 6 weeks, they've left. Why? It's because we didn't take into account everything. We didn't make the employer aware of what some of the difficulties may be. And if we try and bring that all together and those support mechanisms together, ultimately, eventually, that person may stay in employment longer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you Terry and Zolfga for it's a direct challenge. Yes, Michael, go ahead.
Thank you for the last 2 days of this presentation. And I want to be in it next year again.
So we have a direct challenge there from the guys about creating personalised and adaptable systems, universal design to support people in real time in the workplace. That I think would take a multidisciplinary approach, but it's so well articulated. That's excellent. Any questions or issues people might want to raise now? David.
It's an absolutely massive issue for us here.
Of course. Yeah.
I know there's people from lots of other cities, but for us in Nottingham, it's absolutely, our situation is appalling here. We provide very, very little support for people with disabilities, whether they're leaving school at 16 or 19, and we don't track anybody beyond the age of 19 in the city. We really know very, very little what we work on. Anecdotally, we know it's very, very poor, but statistically we don't really know at all. So we know it's a very dire situation.
So there's a huge opportunity there for technology to come and help. And I know there's lots of people here working in universal design, in systems that can be personalised or adaptable to the user, and that can offer real-time support in terms of technology. And I think what you did there was articulate the problem so well. It's almost like a brief that we give to our final year students. Here is an issue, here is a problem in universal design adaptability. But it's actually a real-world issue, isn't it?
Yeah, I think. Shall I?
Of course.
I think, you know, for someone like myself, I've worked for a number of years in health and social care, working with people with learning disabilities, and I'm fine. Like I said earlier, we can all argue that, the best way to support someone is to help them to support themselves. And I think we would all subscribe to that, but the reality is we still haven't found a system to do that. And all we're saying is there's got to be a way of doing it. You know, we've got some amazing technology, robots, you've got this riff, we've got, some amazing stuff in this room. Are we really using it? And that's the question.
Alexandra.
I'm just going to have a little bit of a plug for the discipline I come from, which is human factors engineering. And we take socio-technical systems approaches to evaluating implementation of the new system.
Thank you, Michael.
Did anybody hear that?
Are we on with the radio mic?
Hello?
Yeah.
It was just, like I said, a quick plug for the discipline that I come from, which is human factors engineering. We take a socio-technical systems approach to the implementation of new technologies, and we look at the personal, cultural, organisational, wider issues, as well as the use in context, in situ, and we can do this through a wide variety of methods. And actually it sounds like a lot of what you're doing is a role for consultation in that systems approach, and there's a wide range of things that we could look at. So
Sure.
yeah, sorry, that's just a plug basically. It's a compliment.
It's a connection already made.
Yeah.
Point. Yeah, a connection already made.
And complement the work that's already been done, but just kind of scale up those evaluations so that the deployment of these things can actually be successful.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, good. All right, what I suggest we do now is that, as I said before, we've had the 5 times 15-minute talks. If we have now tea now, afterwards you have a net number on your badge. Go and sit at your tables. We'll have half an hour roundtable discussions. The first 3 minutes of that roundtable discussion will be the people who deliver the talk to raise some issues and challenges which they've already articulated on the screen here. Then you'll have, sit down Mr. Burton, no tea yet until I'm finished. I'm waiting.
Doctor.
Sorry, okay. 27, so he's not ignoring me as usual in the lab. So now we have 27 minutes after then to discuss these issues, nominate a facilitator, and then you'll each have 5 minutes to feed back to the plenary. Georgina's then going to help me assist me in kind of collating all the major issues or challenges or the way ahead for us as a team and organisation to address impact and some of the challenges raised by our speakers today, and then we'll finish at that point. Okay, tea, then round table. Matthew. And the video's ready? Yeah. So why don't we all grab a cup of tea and then we can come back and watch the video? Brilliant.